Okay, welcome back. Blockchain introduction. In this section, we are going to talk about what blockchain is, how does it work, how it's going to affect all of us. So this is a topic of this section. So let's take a look at the next slide. So if you remember our previous discussion about the Byzantine generals problem, so this is a riddle which is solved by a person, or we don't know at this point is a person or the group of people under the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. He published a white paper in 2008 which created the blockchain to serve a public ledger for Bitcoin, which is the cryptocurrency that was introduced at that time. So Bitcoin was the first implementation of the blockchain. So this implementation of the blockchain over the Bitcoin network, it used the point-to-point network to transfer the monetary value without having any involvement or bank or any financial institution over the Bitcoin network. So this was the first blockchain implementation and introduction of the blockchain technology to the world. So it solved the riddle of Byzantine generals problem, how to totally trustless system, and also how to move a value over the peer-to-peer network without having any centralized intermediary or the third party being engaged. Okay, so blockchain technology is nothing but a ledger, and a ledger where you can just store any kind of information. You can write all the transaction on a piece of paper, and you can use a notebook where you have for different pages where you write down all the transaction and the spiral binding and the way you can connect all the pages together. Similarly, in Excel spreadsheet, in the modern days, instead of using a notebook, paper notebook, we use Excel spreadsheet to store the information. And similarly, we use like a database to store that information. So in that regards, the blockchain is no different. It's same in that way. The special thing about the blockchain is it can store any kind of transaction information. And the other special thing about the blockchain is the way it stores the data as compared to the existing databases and the spreadsheet and the ledger, because it's immutable. Like you cannot change it, and it's decentralized. It's no one person is controlling. So these are a lot of different features which blockchain offers in addition to what other databases and existing technology which is already providing us that feature. You can go and store that information in Excel, you can do in the database, or you can write in a piece of paper. But blockchain technology is providing a lot more on top of that, and that's why it is making very promising technology of our time. It's very extraordinary. Like the features providing, it's going to change the way we do business and all the transaction we do in a modern day. So that's going to have a huge impact by the addition of this blockchain technology. So just take a look at this information that in terms of transaction, you can have any kind of financial transaction, you can store it. There are a lot of different options. Like I'm just listing some of them, and you can start thinking and you can come up with your own use case, and you can once you know the technology, and you can pretty much come up with any new use case for using that technology and storing any kind of new data. But here I have listed some of them just to start with. Financial transaction is one of them. Property ownership is one of them. Verification of the credential, your degree or your certificate, patient medical information. Also in a supply chain, the origin of the materials and the authenticity of the products used. Especially avoiding the fraud in the voting. Also this distribution of the content, the music and the publishing work. In essence, you can have any agreement between the two parties in the form of the smart contract. So anything which can be defined in the logic and it can be coded into the smart contract can be easily stored on the blockchain. And once you put all the information in the page, just like a notebook. So just the block is nothing but a page in a notebook where each page is numbers. Similarly, each block is number, and at the end, when the block is filled or the page is filled, you put a stamp on it, which is a digital fingerprint of the information contained in that page, which protect and safeguard the information so that nobody can change that information. And not only that, this fingerprint is also served as the hashing and chaining, which is pretty much providing the feature of the spiral binding, where all the pages are connected together with a spiral binding. Here in the blockchain, this is hashing, which is connecting the one block with the other. So we will see that details in the coming section, but here it is like a basic introduction of the blockchain. So let's take a look at the more about the blockchain technology in the next slide. So one more thing I want to talk about before we go ahead. The blockchain technology, as I said, is a decentralized, it's a distributed, it's a ledger, but it is a distributed ledger. What that mean by the decentralized? So normally the system we use today, whether in the form of our cloud services or any kind of data sharing services, whether it's Dropbox or the Google or Gmail, so these are all pretty much centralized system where one party is controlling the database, and they're having a sole ownership of that particular system or the database, and we as a user connect to the system. So this is called the client server technology. In the distributed world, same database can be distributed across different physical location or maybe different places, but again is still one single authority managing and maintaining the database and responsible for the operation and the updating and deleting, and they are the sole ownership of the system. So this is a distributed system, whereas blockchain is distributed and also decentralized. What that means is database is actually distributed across all the different nodes, and not only that, there's no one party is controlling. So every node on the network is responsible for maintaining and controlling the data. So they all have an equal voice, and that's pretty much give the strength to the blockchain system, where all these parties are actually pretty much are responsible for maintaining and the integrity of the data. So it's not one party is controlling, is the whole network is kind of owner of the database, and also it is distributed. Like, I mean, there's no single point of failure. So in this case, in the centralized system, if this database goes down, so you cannot get access to your data, whereas here doesn't matter, like as far as majority of the nodes up and running with the correct integrity of the data, so you can still get your data. So which is a pretty big number of the nodes. When we say like a majority of the nodes, like 51% of the nodes are in operation in the right fashion, then definitely you can get your data, which is a huge number of nodes running in the network. So there's no way your data can be lost. So there's so many other features in the decentralized and distributed network we'll discuss as we go along. But at this point, I just want to highlight that the blockchain is a decentralized distributed ledger. Okay, so main features of the blockchain. So let's discuss those now. Blockchain is, as I said, is like a data blocks which are chained together to form a database. We call it blockchain. There are two main pillars. One is the peer-to-peer networking, where all the different nodes are connected together in a network, and they're all connected to each other. They all are equal in the status, like there's no client to server. They actually all are running the same code, so they are peer to each other. So that's the main pillar of the blockchain. And the other main pillar is the cryptography. As we have seen in the section of cryptography, like, I mean, it's having a very solid backbone on which the technology, this blockchain technology, is based on. So this technology is solving the trust problem, and it's using cryptography as a replacement of the trust, which normally in our daily transaction, which we have a third party intermediary for every transaction, which providing a trust. So in the case of the blockchain, it's the cryptography and the collaboration of the network, which is peer-to-peer network, is providing the trust, and it's replacing the third party from the middle. Instead of third party or the intermediary, there's a multi-party consensus, where the whole network is acting as a trust for the transaction. The second thing is also is a decentralized network. So its data is not restricted to single location. It's actually decentralized. It's not in the command of one control or ownership. It's actually the whole network is the owner of the data. In essence, it's just like a computer code or algorithm. So blockchain is just like nothing but a code. It's a distributed ledger where you can store the data on the different nodes in the network. It's decentralized. It's not controlled by a single party. It's immutable, means every information which goes into the block, it cannot change it. If anybody try to change that information, so that's gonna be flagged right away, and it's going to be rejected by the consensus of with the whole network. It's transparent, means this is auditable, like every transaction as it's happening is time stamped and it goes into the block. So if you want to go back and trace any transaction, you can go back to the in the history and you can find out the actual origin of the transaction, where it is originated with a timestamp. Also, it provides a consent in the form of a digital signature, where if you want to transfer any asset or value to any other person, you provide your consent by using a digital signature, which facilitates the transfer of asset and value on the peer-to-peer network, which is agreed by multi-party consensus, and it is secure by the cryptography. So that's pretty much the whole summary of the blockchain. As I said, it's a very promising technology, and it's going to change a lot of things, and it's going to change a lot of business processes and the way we do the business today. So let's discuss more features of the blockchain in the coming slides. Thank you.